Hello, and welcome to Nork City of Poets. I am your host, Jaleesa McEachin, and today I am here with Baba Zayid. He's an activist, a poet, an author. He is amazing. Welcome to the show.
You talk about me?
Yeah, I'm talking about you.
Well, I'm very humbled and very proud of you and honored that you would have me. Thank you,
Well,
darling.
thank you. So, how did you begin writing poetry?
Actually, it started with the great Muhammad Ali.
Hmm.
And when he regained his title, I would write poems in anticipation of his title defenses. And I would put them to the music of that time. That's how I first started. Then I got away from it for a long time. But then I came back to it very seriously as a consequence of an encounter with a book called Fire Spitter. Every poet of African descent needs to have it. It's by the great Jane Cortez, who was my first real serious mentor and teacher in terms of the craft. I was in Liberation Bookstore. Bookstore's no longer there in Harlem. It was run by an old Garveyite named Una Mulzak. And I just came across this small book with this great art, and this spoke to me. And called Fire Spit. I said, "What's this?" And I opened it and just started and read every single poem out loud in that store. And I said, "Yeah, this whoever she is, she got it." And just 2 weeks later, it was a press release in the Amsterdam News that one Jane Cortez was doing a poetry workshop at the Frederick Douglass Creative Arts Center
Hmm.
in Midtown Manhattan. I was the first one online and the first one in the class, and I've been trying to write a little bit ever since.
Okay. So, in poetry, there are a lot of writers. Who is one of your favorites, your most influential?
There's no most. She would. I mentioned her, and I should say also that she's also one of the, and she doesn't give credit for
Hmm.
this. I would call her one of the founding mothers of the Black Arts Movement.
Mm.
Certainly, the Black Arts Movement on the West Coast is always associated with my great friend and teacher Marvin X. But it was Jane Cortez who was at the center stage of creating the Watts Writers Workshop, and that was one of the central pieces to the Black Arts Movement on the West Coast. So Jane definitely. I'm here in Newark, New Jersey, right? And that Amiri Baraka
Yes.
is my was my Baba, all right, and politically in many respects, and certainly artistically as well. Um, um, you were just on with my dear queen and friend Queen Mother Maku, who just reunited me with a wonderful brother Abiodun Oyewale from the Last Poets.
Hmm.
Abiodun and Umar bin Hassan, huge influences. And I actually did a workshop with Abiodun at the African Poetry Theater. In the African Poetry Theater, which is in Jamaica, Queens, I had some peers, Darrell Holmes, Vicky Akawumi, Edwin Drew. They had an ensemble, the
Hmm.
African Poetry Theater Poetry and Drum Ensemble, where they drummed and did their poetry together. And in my 20s, I'm looking at heads rolling like that, and this is in the 1980s, after the 60s. They blew my mind and brought me in to what it is that I knew that I wanted to do. So there's a range of influences, but those are my core influences for sure.
I see. Just like you guys are my core influences. Um, how? Okay, let's talk about Zayid Muhammad before Baba Zayid came into play.
Uh,
How was your beginning? How before you became Baba Zayid? What was Zayid Muhammad like?
well, X is the answer. You know me from all my work with the Panther tradition and on upholding the legacy of Malcolm X. I came to this place of consciousness the hard way. I literally stole the autobiography of Malcolm X in the drug transaction in which I was the dealer. Everybody was like, who was the dealer in the question? I was the dealer. All right. And I stole it in the nick of time because things were hot for me on the streets,
Right.
and I certainly was on my way either to death or to prison for taking somebody out of here, because that's how that can get. And we had an intuitive understanding on the streets back then that that's the kind of thing that doesn't last terribly long, and everybody takes a fall, and I certainly was on the verge of it. And that book, when I stole it and read it, it truly did save my life. So Malcolm's influence gave me my first place of example and structure spiritually and then later politically. You
Right.
know, I became this Muslim Zayid Muhammad on the streets, and then the brother Zayid, and I became this Muslim, this Pan-Africanist revolutionary also, you know, as I, you know, progressed with my own development. So it's all started with Malcolm for sure, without a doubt. And then just in recent years, because of what I had inherited and what I had brought to the community as a consequence of being on that walk, I'm a cover of the New York chapter of the Black Panther Party. I'm a cover of Deruba Ben Wahad, who'll be in town this weekend. We're getting ready to celebrate the 25th anniversary of his release from prison. He was a former political prisoner after having been in the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army. I'm a cover of Assata Shakur. I'm a cover of Sundiata Akoli. I'm a cover of Safia Bukhari Austin, who I named my only child after. You know, so all of that, you know, brought me to a brother who specialized in scaring the hell out of white folks, who was very dear to me by the name of Khalid Abdul Muhammad.
Mm-hmm.
And when Khalid took over things in the new Black Panther Party, he realized that he needed help. And I was humbled that he came to me. He said, "Look, man, I'm trying to, you know, ground another generation, and you got some, you know, you got some background. You know, I need you to help me train some troops." And so I came in. I actually wound up coming in shortly before he left, and I wound up staying on post for 15 years because I was just getting started what he had asked me to do when he left. So it was more about honoring the post
Right.
than just, you know, doing a friend a favor.
Right.
You know, so that shaped all of that shaped who and what I became, and I'm grateful to God for having been that and having done that.
So where did the title of Baba come from?
It knocked my head off because I still think I'm kind of young for that. When you think of elders in the community, usually the age that it's associated with is 60. And I ain't 60 yet, all right? Not yet. But nevertheless, when it comes, you know, it means something. Baba in the Yoruba language, one of the languages that was one of the most important carriers of our spiritual tradition from Africa to the Western Hemisphere, right? Means father, basically. It means
Right.
father. So I had an email, you know, Safia's Baba, you know, and then that became Baba Zayid, and that was just an email,
Mm-hmm.
right? But one day, just out of the blue, and she has since emerged as being one of my favorite Black Power daughters in this community. Her name is Siasia,
Mm-hmm.
right? Actually ran into me at my job, right? And I work at the airport. She just looked at me once and said, "Baba Zayid," and I said, "Oh, she's calling me Baba Zayid."
Like,
I said, "Yes, baby, that's me," you know.
so
And
it
of course,
was,
I knew who she was, but I had to really sit, you know, just get a hold of myself. And that's several years ago.
Right.
You know, I'm 53 now, but that was several years ago. I'm like, am I ready to be a Baba already? You know, so I had to really just stop and look at the fact that I am an elder to a whole lot of young folks.
but the thing
And
is, too, it's also I think it's also a title of power, too, to me, because it's not in a sense of hierarchical power, but it's in the sense of, okay, I'm a young poet, you're an elder poet with the name Baba Zayid. I feel like, okay, I can go to my artistic father for guidance. That's how I feel that the title Baba is. I know you sometimes think of it as like an elder type thing, like an age thing, but I also see it as that too.
you know, it's interesting, and I appreciate the question, and our previous guest, Queen Mother Mako, because we've lost just in the last couple of years some
Yeah.
incredible elders, and this within the last year when we lost Amiri and we lost Maya, and it was a big influence on her, and Ruby D was a huge influence on me, and Jane, you know, we lost Jane just before that, you know, and John Watusi Branch, who founded the African Poetry Theater and ran it for years, you know, we had a conversation that said, you know, we the Babas and the Queen,
Yeah.
we got to really deal with this. You know, these kids are looking at us. You know, they're not around to take on all of that responsibility of direction that you're
Right.
talking about. And as you know, community activists and role models and all that, we've done it all our lives already. So it's natural. It's the natural progression of things in a real sense. But it's sometimes it takes a minute just to adjust as it reaches another level. And when you start communicating to elders at that level. Elders need to take that seriously. And
Right.
elders, y'all hear me? I need to, and I'm saying it to elders. It's
Yeah.
an important responsibility, and our children need good sources of direction and inspiration. So I'm trying to figure out how to be a good Baba for real.
I mean, another question I have too is freedom. What does freedom mean to you? Because being able to break away from your past to become something greater than your past. I know a lot of times when we think of freedom, we think of, running from one place to another, but knowledge is freedom. Removing yourself from a situation that's maybe not right for you is freedom. So, how important do you think it is for young people to realize what freedom is and to go and fight for that freedom?
See, we have to understand also. Well, let me try and answer your question this
Mhm.
way. First and foremost, freedom is freedom from oppression,
Mhm.
any kind, from any quarter. All right, and having had the awesome, brutal, horrific, genocidal legacy of having had to endure the most abuse that any people have ever endured, we need to understand that first and foremost, it is the freedom from any form of oppression.
Mhm.
And we don't want a freedom where we're liberating ourselves from whatever it is we're liberating ourselves from, whether it's the systematic oppression of the system that we live under or some other personal abuses that we may be facing. We certainly don't want to become somebody else's oppressor
Right.
or abuser. So it's the freedom from any kind of oppression or abuse. That's the first
Mhm.
thing. But also in the larger sense, freedom is also the basis for human development. Freedom, when with that also is the responsibility for us being able to grow and develop to our full potential, and that full potential having a relevance to our village, to everyone around us, not just to our personal pocketbooks, our
Right.
personal egos, our personal styles, or however we roll. It means something in the larger construct of a people who have yearned for freedom, who have shown the world how to walk with our heads high,
Mhm.
with freedom at its highest level. Our ancestors are the ones that brought high, not just culture to the world, but high culture to the
Right.
world. You talk about our ancient Nile Valley ancestors. They didn't just bring the ABCs of civilization. They took it to its highest level. Your friend the white man still trying to figure out what all that stuff is that our ancestors have tried to develop. So that's freedom is a responsibility
Right.
to do our best to be able to open ways for those coming behind us to be able to do their best and to advance human development wherever we can.
So, do you feel like poets are responsible for the voice that of the well basically do you feel that we're responsible as the voice of the voiceless?
Let me say, and I appreciate that too. You're on it. In the language of P-Funk, I'm originally from Plainfield. You're on the one, right? Poets in our tradition, and taking our tradition back as far as you can, have always represented the embodiment
Mhm.
of our voice, our vision, what we're going through, and where we need to be going. You know, and the poets who we tend to remember and honor.
Mhm.
I mean, there are a lot of poets out here just about self, and some of them just being straight silly for attention. But the poets who we come to honor over time are poets who have understood that
Right.
and have brought that that mountain of knowledge, tradition, principle, dignity, spirituality, struggle, all those things together in a high art form in a way that allows our people to raise their eyes
Right.
towards something better than where they were. So that's huge to what we do. Absolutely.
And just as it's important for us to be the voice of the voiceless, how important do you feel it is for the voiceless to find their voice?
Well, that's the core. I mean, that's the first thing that the person wanting to become a poet has to do,
Mhm.
is to figure out and find their own voice. And any real poet in his or her proper role, in the sense that we just described it, has the responsibility of helping those coming behind them to do the very same thing. Absolutely.
So I know that you are the historian for the Popcorn Kids program. How important is it? Because that program is an excellent program for children to know their heritage. How important is it for other programs to sprout up just like that, or for that program to spread to other places?
Let me put it this way. The Black Panther Party is best known for its courageous, defiant stance on police brutality. Quiet as is kept has 62 community survival programs. And the most important programs had to do with the well-being of our youth, whether they were liberation schools, whether they were the whole question around identifying sickle cell anemia, which is a disease particular to our people that they revolutionized, feeding, food and clothing drives, feeding and clothing people, all those things. Those are things that we absolutely, our children are screaming for those kind of programs. You know, it's my modest judgment that not only do we need programs like the Popcorn Kids, but we need programs that actually go further.
Right.
We need true, meaningful rites of passage programs, not just for our boys, but for our boys and our girls.
Exactly.
You know, that truly trains them in their tradition and all those things that we're absent of and all those other places where we're forced to go
Right.
for learning, that are committed to not allowing us to go but so far in what we learn, unfortunately. You know, so in the absence of that, we have to create those kinds of spaces so our young men and women can come to learn how to be men and women in the tradition that ultimately brings us to our best. Absolutely, they're very important.
I totally agree. And I know that you are always on the front line, fighting for something. Do you feel that there are enough elders in the community and the community of the arts and every other aspect fighting to help these younger people instead of judging them?
If the answer was yes, you wouldn't have had to ask the question, unfortunately. And I think sadly we're in a time where with so many so-called leaders, if you can call them that, are more concerned with commercially capitalizing on their personalities than they are truly with the advance of struggle. And so many people are thrown in front of us in media outlets as leaders who have no organizations, no institutions, and no structured commitment to our people beyond their personality and getting checks for their personalities. Right. So the short answer to that is no, unfortunately. And that's something that, with the losses that we have been facing, with the passing of great elders in the last year, that's just crystallized in my consciousness recently too. So I struggle with my peer group, on our responsibility, to this next generation to really, get ourselves together. And it's a shame because, we were the child of one of our people's greatest generation in the Western Hemisphere. We're the children of that. We're children of the '60s.
Yeah.
We were the kids, watching our freedom fighters really rock this system down, in the 1960s, and yet we're one of the most waylaid because they didn't want to see us grow up. And when in the 1980s, when the whole struggle around Southern Africa was starting to get hot, and of course, Southern Africa contains more natural resources than any other place in the world, and if that were truly liberated economically, the African picture around the world would be totally different.
Right.
They came at our generation with every kind of drug in the book beyond the heroin of the 1960s and 1970s in itself, and it broke a lot of us. It broke a lot of us. So when I'm on the street, for example, because we do a lot of anti-gun violence work, the first thing I have to do is to apologize to our babies, because a lot of us, ran, instead of running from what was being brought into our community to destroy us, we ran to it thinking it's just another part of the party.
Right.
And it wiped a lot of us out, and it wiped out our capacity to cope and to parent and to be the kind of basic examples that y'all need us to be. So I'd make that apologies in a blanket way, and then I get in their behinds, of course, because there still ain't no excuse for us killing each other.
Right.
All right, but no, our generation has got a long way to go to own up to what we were born into, and the legacy that we were supposed to inherit. And the generation that before us also made some mistakes in its preparation and how to pass down and carry on us in that tradition. Some did well, but not enough did well.
Right.
So we have to do some reconstructing along those lines, as well as the basic community reconstruction that we need to do as well.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today. You do a lot of work in the community, a lot of work in the community, and you don't get paid for it.
No, we
So
don't.
I really just wanted to say thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come here and talk to us.
No, you are the pay. You're the fruit of our labor. So no, that's what it's about. When we see, you know, that generation like you beginning to shine, we know we did something right, even if we didn't get it all right.
So I hope you'll come back and do this again.
You sound the drum daughter. I'm there.
And I just want to say thank you guys so much for watching North City of Poets. Again, I am your host, Jaleesa McEachin. Until next time.
It's from a volume of pieces that I'm simply calling the soul poems. Some pieces based on the music that I grew up on. And this particular piece, in honor of an observation of Women's History Month, is for the late, great Mary Weaver, one of my great comrades, and former vice chair of the People's Organization for Progress, and a beacon of strength in the fight against police brutality, simply called Mary. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. On this warm, balmy, beautiful day, under this watchful, century-mature tree, under this sun shaken at its solar center, in a circle of eyes soaked with rivers of anguish, we have left our vehicles at the gates of this sullen place to march proudly to this spot, poised now to embrace her remains, this spot ironically marked X. 15 years and 3 weeks from where and when her son, her only child, was laid to rest here at this very same place. We come now. We come now to salute this mother, his mother. We come now to salute an incredible woman, an endearing mother and grandmother, an enormous comrade. We come now to salute a stone-solid freedom fighter, gold-hearted with a huge love for the people. We come now to salute a proven soldier, empire-trained but committed to the people. We come now to salute this beaming beacon of heroic strength, who bathed in the blood from the hole in her heart, left by the police bullet that killed her only child, and emerged somehow a force for justice and the true source of comfort for legions of mothers who would come behind her with their hearts bleeding from holes created by police bullets killing their sons. We come to salute this amazing black woman prophetically named Mary, who rose up among us from the strife and struggle of the finger-popping black working class, enduring the sacrifice of her only begotten son, weaving resolve in all those punctured hearts who came behind her. And although our faces are here now one huge sea of grief, although our hearts wince with being pierced by her sudden departure from our mediocre midst, although we know not for sure if we can ever emerge with her blood-soaked strength in the face of the historical challenge of now, just as she did right before us, we vow at this sullen moment, upon the strong shoulders of ancestors known and unknown, before the one true God, giving breath to her son's spilt blood, giving breath to other blood spilt by police terror and oppression, giving breath to our resistance to this family-shattering evil, bearing the colors of struggle, geared up for protest as she would have us do, as she did in so many battles over so many years, cradling our memory of her straight-backed regal strength under this sure but shaken sun, under this muscular, century-matured witnessing tree, with our eyes stinging with rivers of anguish, we vow. We vow to honor her strength. We vow. We vow to stand against injustice wherever we find it. We vow. We vow to look inside of ourselves to find greater strength to continue, because the struggle continues just as she looked inside of herself and found her own. We vow. We vow to continue. We vow to carry on, to carry on, to carry on. And I thought we'd see forever, but forever's gone away. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday, to yesterday. For the late, great Mary Weaver, Stolen Moments. I'm so thankful you came to me that day. Came all ice sweet like berry jam. Came so cozy, so cuddly, so real sweet. May the sun set right in your lap. Then you thrilled me and wooed me and chilled me and groomed me. Forgot all my stress and just sipped on the blessing. So easy, so cool, so easy, so blue. You nearly stole my heart. A moment for the stars. Ba-dee-doo, 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 ba-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo-dee, ba-dee-doo-doo-dee-doo, boo-ba-doo-dee, ba-dee-doo, ba-dee-doo-doo. Bo-dee-doo, bo-dee-da-doo-doo-dee, bo-dee-doo, bo-dee-doo-doo, bo-dee-boo, bo-doo-dee-doo-doo-doo, bo-doo-bo-doo-lee, ba-lee-lee, lee-lee, lee-lee. But little, little, but little, little, but little, So thankful you came to me that day. Came all ice sweet like berry jam. Came so cozy, so cuddly, so real sweet. May the sun set right in your lap. Then you thrilled me and wooed me and chilled me and blued me. Forgot all my stress and just sipped on the blessings. So easy, so cool, so easy, so blue. You nearly stole my heart. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. A moment for the start. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Nearly stole my heart. Mm-mm-mm-mm. A moment for the stars.